Hey guys, so Lord here, back again with another review. Today we'll be taking a look at the Mattel Masterverse Masters of the Universe Revelation Deluxe Trap Jaw. Now before we get into it here, let us first take a look-see at both the front and the back of the packaging. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now before we get into the meat and taters of this review, Trap Jaw does come with a plethora of accessories. First up, Trap Jaw does come with two interchangeable hands for his left arm, the first of which is this Kung Fu grip hand. The second of which is this open/relaxed hand, or as I like to call it, the turn your head and cough hand. Oh yeah! Next up, Trap Jaw does come with 3 arm attachments, and unlike most Trap Jaw figures we've gotten in the past, the pig is actually located on the arm itself, not the attachment. So I'm going to advise that you use caution when swapping these out, and maybe heat them up before you interchange them, just so you don't snap that peg off the arm. That said, the first arm attachment is of course his laser cannon, which is very reminiscent of the vintage one. The second of which is his hook attachment. If I'm being 100% honest, it looks a lot more like a crowbar to me. And last but certainly not least, for his arm attachments anyways, Trap Jaw does come with the pincer claw attachment, or as I like to call it, the titty twister of doom. And of all the arm attachments that this iteration of good old Trap Jaw does come with, the pincer claw here is by far my favorite as far as a redesign goes. I really like this iteration of the pincer claw. It's a lot more gnarly looking than most iterations of the pincer claw have been in the past, with the exception of the 2000X version, of course, because, well, let's face it, everything was gnarly in 2000X, right? With that being said, for me anyways, this one is by far the most difficult to get attached to his arm there. So again, I'd like to reiterate that you should use heat while swapping these out, because you don't want to snap that little peg off. That would just be a bad day, man. It should also be worth noting that all 3 arm attachments can hang off his little green skull belt there. So if you don't want to use certain attachments, you can put them there for easy storage. Even though in Revelation, he just kind of transformed his arm. He didn't actually physically take them off his belt and put them on his arm. But it is what it is, I suppose. A nice touch nonetheless. And last but certainly not least, Trap Jaw does come with his motherboard Technicult robes, courtesy of the local TJ Maxx, and much like the Triclops I took a look at a few months ago now, does just attach via these fasteners on the back. But it should be worth noting that you can't really open his jaw when he's got this stuff on, so that is a bit of a bummer. But with that being said, let's now move on and take a look at the aesthetics and articulation. Now before we take a closer look at good old Trap Jaw here, I would first of all like to say that this review is brought to you in part by my good buddy Evil Villain, who was nice enough to snag me this figure off from the Target website while he was on sale for 26 buckaroos. So I will leave a link in the description below to his Instagram. Please go give him a follow. He posts all kinds of cool toy and action figure related news. I'm sure you'll find something there that you like. But taking a closer look at good old TJ here, based off how he appeared in the MOTU Revelation series, that is. I would like to see some other versions of the characters at some point, but we are getting that with New Eternia. That said though, as much as I love the Barbarian Skeletor, this guy right here is giving him a run for his money. Mostly because of fun factor, which, if you guys know Trap Jaw, you know that's his whole point of existence, is fun factor. He's got the hinged jaw, crazy tongue action going on. Would not want to be French kissed by this dude. And for those of you who think this looks ridiculous, but think the fly swatter hand from Filmation isn't, y'all can get out of here with that shit, because that was ridiculous. That said though, I can't talk either because I like Spawn figures. So it is what it is. That said, though, as I mentioned during the accessories, the point of contention with this figure is the swappability of his weapon arms. And while the gun is pretty easy out of package, and I've since heated it up a little bit to make it easier to pop on and off for this review, I do highly suggest you use heat to try and swap these things out so you don't break that little peg. That said, other than that, this figure is damn near flawless. Also forgot to mention, much like I did during accessories, you can attach the weapons to the belt here pretty easy, so long as you line that little hook up, like so. It's a little tricky at first, but it can be done. Popping that back on. Again, it's much easier to put on and off than it used to be. As far as articulation on this guy goes, his head will rotate. He's got that double ball peg situation going on up in there. He's got a hinged jaw, of course. Not really crazy about the bolts on the helmet, but it is what it is. Shoulders go out to the side, go back down, rotate forward and back. Bicep swivel, double joint at the elbow, works pretty well. He's got a swivel and hinge at the wrist. Comes with a grip hand, of course, without the proper hinge, might I add. Wouldn't like to fist with this dude because, well, he doesn't swap his weapons out on his weapon arm by hand. They just kind of transform and whatnot. So very strange that we don't get a fist with this guy, but it is what it is. This arm has just a hinge with the bicep swivel, and of course the weapon arms rotate here, so that's fine. It's got an ab crunch that crunches forward, crunches back a little bit. Not a whole lot of range out of that. Waist swivel, belt sits on him nice and secure, but if you pop it up it does get loose. So I tend to push it down here where it's nice and snug. As far as the legs go, hips kick out to the side, kick back down, they kick forward and back. Standard Masterverse stuff, but you don't have to crank on it like the first couple of waves of these figures. It's got a thigh cut, double joint at the knee, swivel at the boot. It's got these big knee pads, so those are going to get in the way, FYI. And he has a hinge in the foot with a rocker joint. I could see some of these pieces being used on Roboto. What do you guys think? Well, with that being said, that is Trapjaw in a nutshell. He is awesome. He looks awesome. Some of the stylistic things I am a fan of, and some of them I'm not. Like the arm, I think I would have preferred seeing like a big honking shoulder pad on this thing. Considering he's got these big knee pads, it would have looked good to have something like that up here. And then the bolts on the helmet, I'm just not into that. It is what it is, though. Still a really cool looking figure of how he looked in the Revelation series, though. Really, really cool. And if you don't have the MOTU Classics one, A, I'm sorry, and B, this is a very nice substitute. Because, let's face it, would you rather pay 26 bucks for this guy or 260 bucks for the other guy? I mean, let's be real here. So with that being said, let's now move on and take a look at some size comparisons. First up, here's our new-ish Masterverse Trapjaw next to his Origins and 2000X counterparts. Next up, here he is alongside a couple other Masterverse figures, Skeletor and Triclops. Switching Trapjaw back into his motherboard Technocult robes, here he is next to Beastman and Triclops, and can I just say, these two look absolutely fabulous together. And last, but certainly not least, we have our two regulars, the Mythic Legions for the Mandibulus, Lemon Spawn, and even though Trapjaw does not have a fancy hat like Triclops, he is about on par with good old Al Simmons here, thanks to the little loop-de-loop on his helmet. So with that being said, time to wrap things up. Some final thoughts. Overall, and out of all the figures we've gotten from the MOTU Revelation series in this Masterverse line. Good old Trapjaw here is by far one of my favorites. Top 5? Absolutely. Top 3? Maybe. Top 2? Well, let's face it, nobody's going to top my boy Scareglow, but at the end of the day, aside from the fact that his weapon attachments are a little bit tricky to swap on and off of his arm there, again, not sure why they chose to go with that connection, but Heat will fix that, or if you're rich, just buy 3 of the damn thing and you can have 1 with each attachment. That's a bit excessive though, much like having 50 of the same figure. But with that being said, if you haven't picked this guy up yet, I highly suggest you do so while he is on sale for 26 buckaroos over at the good old Target, because this is by far one of the best figures, not only from Revelation, but from the Masterverse line in general, and is a contender for one of the top 13 action figures of 2022. I assure you. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you are so inclined, please don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you know whenever I upload more reviews like this one. While you're at it, don't forget to hit up my good buddy Evil Villain over on Instagram. I'll be sure to leave a link in the description below. Go ahead, give him a follow, let him know Overlord sent you. And if you haven't already, please hit me up on Instagram at Overlord Productions. But as always, keep the comments civil, because the world sucks enough as it is, especially when you go joining techno cults. You should probably think about your life choices there, buddy. And until next time, I'll catch you guys later.